WeenCast, a Ween podcast with Rory Gibbons and Shane Pressman.
This is Shane.
This is Rory.
And this is WeenCast.
Yes,
How
indeed.
How is everyone doing? We are back. Okay. So, we are going to go back in time tonight. We're going to talk about another one of the shows from our youth. This is the third show that I attended. Rory, this is
This is my second show.
The second one for you. And this was New Year's Day, 1/1/99 at the Trocadero in Philadelphia. I guess just a couple of things about the show at the time and whatnot. It was the third Ween show that I've seen, and it was the third Ween show at the Trocadero. And unfortunately, this is the last time that they played the Trocadero in Philly.
It's the last time I saw them at the Trocadero. I didn't realize it was the last time they played there.
No, I mean I'm fairly certain that after this, they basically started playing some bigger places, and the next time that they played Philadelphia was at the Electric Factory.
Huh.
So I don't think after this they ever played the Trocadero again. Which is, it's good for them, and it's good to see them in different places and have some different experiences. But the Trocadero is it's just a great club. It's just a great place. It's kind of one of those places where it doesn't matter where you are. There's no bad spot. There's no bad, seat in the house, so to speak. So it's kind of bittersweet that this was the last time that they would play the Troc. But they had sold it out twice. It was the second time that they played the Troc, and it was sold out. The last show that we talked about, which was the beginning of '98 at the Troc. That was the first time they sold it out, and this was another sold-out show. So how many times are you going to sell out the same place before you find somewhere to play in that city that's bigger?
Yeah, and so that was for me. So I was at the 1996 Trocadero show that we've already talked about. It was a pretty small crowd for that one. And so to come back to this one and to find out that it was the final show at the Troc and to see how much bigger the crowd and how it was packed, and quite a send-off for the Troc. It's too bad they haven't gotten back there.
Right. Well, again, this was 1/1/99, as we said. It was a Friday night. Okay, so
Friday night
again, we talked about that Friday night. But there again, and also, this is around the holidays because this is New Year's Day. So you got people, people are on vacation. People are not working, obviously, or on New Year's Day. So it's easy for them to come to something like this. We had a pretty good crowd of people that came with us. We'll get to that in a second. Real quick, I just want to touch base on, this is another one of those shows that is readily available. You can listen to this entire show right now on YouTube. If you search Ween Trocadero 1999, there's a full-length video that you can listen to the whole thing, and there's also a full-length video. This was the first time I had ever gotten a Ween bootleg tape, VHS tape, of the video of this show. I think it's the same one that's on YouTube. I think there's only really one video recording that ever sort of got out there. I'm pretty sure it's the same one. But it's on YouTube, so you can listen to the whole thing or you can watch the whole thing. So that's fucking cool.
It's out there.
So it's out there. So check out this show if you weren't there or if you didn't if you never listened to it. It's definitely worth checking out. We'll talk a little bit about getting down there and the people that went with us.
Yeah. So if I may, I'd like to kind of lay it out for everybody. So I remember that we were still meeting at the high school at this point, and this is 1999. So I'm on winter break from college. So I was back in town because I was a student at Penn State at the time, but I was back in Ole visiting, and so we're still meeting the high school parking lot, which is fun. But you and I, we were at your house and getting ready for a New Year's. Believe your parents did the traditional pork and sauerkraut, if I remember correctly.
I don't remember exactly, but yeah, I would assume so. Yes.
Traditional New Year's Day, and so I know you and I, to kind of get ready for the show, kind of stepped aside into your room and gotten some special pizza toppings that we kind of snacked on before going to the show, and so.
Yeah, it's funny how we had pizza toppings but no pizza. I don't know how that happens, but yeah, I do kind of remember something.
So the funny thing about that is that we were young and dumb and not sure how things worked, and I guess I sort of figured that we'd be okay by the time we get on the road and everything. But dinner was kind of weird because let's just say my stomach was a little bit kind of upside down from the pizza toppings, and so dinner was a bit crazy, but we got out of there, and so we get down to the school, and I remember it was funny because you had forgotten the maps, because obviously we're not smartphones and you're not looking at your phone for a map yet. It's 1999. And we got everyone at the school and we're ready to go, and then you realized that you had left the maps back at the house. And at this point, I'm just like, dude, I'm not going back there. Like, I can't go back there. So I don't know if you went by yourself or if someone else went with you.
I think someone else had taken me back up to my house, which is only between 5 and 10 minutes. But yeah, it was kind of one of those things where it was like, oh man, like I forgot my dad's directions, and it was just looking back on it now, we were young at the time. We talked about this in a couple of our past episodes, but you're young and you don't understand. It's like it must have just been the most simple thing, like, okay, get on 422, then get on this, then get on that, but we forgotten the directions, so I had to go back. I think someone had ran me up to the house because I don't think I had my car for some reason. Maybe I drove myself. I don't remember either, but I remember going in, grabbing the directions, coming back down. Everyone was waiting for me, and then making sure everyone had the same thing. There was 3 cars. We had 3 cars of people. We'll talk about that in a second too. But I remember making sure everyone was okay. Like, okay, are we good? This is the directions. This is what we have to do. Getting back in the car, and about 30 seconds later, just completely losing my mind.
It was
I had held on up until then, and we had just gotten out of the parking lot and going down the hill at the high school, and just I specifically remember you were next to me, we were in the back seat, and just saying I don't even know what the fuck is going on anymore.
Yeah, it was so our car
just gotten in the car.
Our car was K-Dog, Isaac, you and me, and it was K-Dog's car. He was driving. Excuse me, Isaac was in the front seat, and we were in the back, just hanging out like 2 silly people hanging out in the back. It was crazy because Isaac had this, I kid you not, he had this head to toe. It was like this yellow outfit, a rain slicker. Right. It was like this shiny, I don't know what material it is, but it was just and on a normal day that would look ridiculous.
It was like a tracksuit.
And so I kept going on and on about how he was like a gangster. You're a gangster. I was concerned that he thought I was insulting him, so I was just like, please, Isaac, I don't mean that as an insult. Don't hurt me, And he's just up there hanging out and laughing and just thinking we're being silly. But the drive down. So I remember a lot of the mollusk, and I remember just singing and just really getting in the mood for the Ween show. And so it was a great wind up to the show. We get there, we had to wait in line outside. I remember it being cold. I remember, so we'll get into a minute, I guess, with everyone who was there, but another one of our friends, Jared, was there, and he had his big Letterman soccer coat, even though,
right.
But it was big and puffy, And so it made he's a pretty big kid anyway, like, big chested, but it made him look like really big. And I remember this little black guy that was like going in and out of the line. He might have been, homeless or something, sort of just like seeing if he could get a dollar here and there, razzing people. And he was just wouldn't let our friend alone because he was like, man, you a football player? Yeah, you look like you're a football player. And it was just like, no, I'm not a football player. And so
yeah. Yeah.
And so just
it was just like
as you're waiting in line, and it's just like, okay, this guy's like, what is this conversation?
Yeah, I think he must have asked somebody like, who is the band that's here to, like, who are you guys waiting to get in to see? And somebody must have told him Ween, or he found out that Ween was in there, and he kept saying like, oh, you people out here waiting to see Ween, yeah, you can't be going in there giving Ween a hard time, hitting on Ween's women, and basically just trying to make the people laugh, and ultimately trying to get money, you know what I mean? Like, here, here's $1, man. Here's it, or whatever. We had what, 12 people, total.
Yeah, I think so. So
because we had 3 cars of 4 people, so we basically were just kind of like, okay, we have enough. If somebody wants to start some shenanigans with us, it's like we got 8 dudes here. You know what I mean? Like, no one's gonna start any shit. So we're just laughing along with this dude, and just like, dude, say whatever you want. It's just, but he didn't. No one was starting any trouble. He was just trying to make people laugh and trying to get him to give him a tip, basically, like, give me $1 because I'm entertaining you folks, that kind of thing. It's like, all right, dude. But I do remember it being very cold, and standing out waiting to get in, and I remember sort of coining the phrase stuck in permanent groove mode, because we were just like rocking back and forth and like, like shuffling around just to try to stay warm, like how you just keep trying to, like, just move a little bit while you're standing still.
Yeah.
I remember doing a lot of that. I don't remember exactly how long we had to wait to get in. It was probably like a half hour. It couldn't have been, I don't think it was that long.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how long it was, but we already went over who was in our car. There was 2 other cars and I think 8 people. So I think of our friends, we had Corey with a C, Kristen, Mark, Jared, Steve, Shannon, Mike, and Mark, I think, is everyone that's there. And by all means, if any of our friends listen to this, please correct us if you were there. 12 people. I think this is the most of the first few shows. This is definitely the most people to go to one show, I think.
I was just going to say, I think this is the biggest crew we had, at least definitely up until now, and probably of all the shows that I had been to, especially all people from our hometown, like all people that went to high school with us, Ole Valley.
Yeah, because at this point, this was still like, okay, high school was just a year and a half ago, so everyone's still feeling pretty connected to hometown, and so you still have your hometown crew.
Right, and also the fact that it's, like we said, this is around the holidays. This is New Year's Day that this show is taking place. So everyone's home from college. Everyone has the day off. So it's like, this is, to me, is like the show where we had convinced the most normal people to go. Well, you know what I mean? It's
people on that I haven't been to a show before or since. So this is like the only show that they've been to, which kind of leads us into the next, part of this, which is kind of get into the show itself. Because if this is the only show you're going to go to, I got to tell everyone out there, this was a baller show. Like, this was a really good show, and we're going to get into all the nitty gritties of the set list and the highlights.
Absolutely.
But,
absolutely.
So it's a fantastic show, and if you want to go into the opening act, Shane, because I know that's a big, the opening act for this show, I think, was the best opening act, one of the best opening acts of any show that we've been to, Ween, for sure. If you want to kind of take it from there.
Sure. So the Sound of Urchin, or just Sound of Urchin, opened for Ween on all three of these shows, I guess we should mention, they had played New Year's Eve the night before, which was in New York. This was New Year's Day, New Year's night in Philadelphia, and then they would play the night after in D.C. So it was going to be all three of those shows, and Sound of Urchin opened for them for all three of them. Up until now, Sound of Urchin was like, okay, you saw them on like the thing that said like, Ween, Sound of Urchin, but we didn't know anything about them. We didn't know who they were or whatever. And the thing that I love about the Urchin set list, if you listen to this, and you can on YouTube, and I know because I uploaded it myself. So if you can listen to the entire Urchin set on YouTube as well. And when it starts off, if you're listening, you can hear just the music that they were just playing, like on the, like on the stereos, like while people are waiting for the show to start. So it's literally like you're listening to it as like you're in the crowd, and you can hear everything. You can hear them. You can hear the music stop, them come out and introduce themselves. And I mean, it's so quiet you can hear like a pin drop, because the crowd doesn't know who these guys are. And a Ween crowd is not going to give the opener any love. We talked about this on our last episode, or the 98 show. But you can tell that they were going to win this crowd over, and they totally succeeded. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you listen to the Urchin set of this show, and Chris, who's Tomato, that's his stage name or whatever you want to say. He's the drummer and also like the lead vocalist. You can tell that he's set out to get this crowd going, get this crowd fired up, and they totally do it.
Oh, it's a raucous opener. It was a raucous opener, and they played a lot of songs too.
Just a fucking great band. If there's anybody that's listening to this that's never listened to Urchin, I find that hard to believe, but if you've never listened to Urchin, do yourself a favor and check them out. Just extremely original, cool shit. All accounts aside, I did send an email to Tomato in preparation for this podcast, and I asked him a couple of questions. And I won't go into the whole thing that we had gone back and forth about, because I don't want to spend a whole lot of time just talking about the Urchin set. But it's really interesting because at the time, they were sort of a band that just kind of got thrown together of like him and his friends. It's him and the other dude, his name is Barbie Smooth. It was those two guys that just sort of like put the thing together as just a fun like project to play music together. Made the EP, which we'll talk about in a second, which is just a 5-6 song EP on CD that they had at the time. And I think, Claude and Diener and those guys had listened to it and were like, oh, you guys should open for us at the New Year's shows. And it was just like, boom, that's it. Like, from there, they became like a real band. And a couple of the guys that were in Urchin at the time basically were like, I didn't know this was going to happen, and I'm not like ready for this. So it's like the band that they were for those like 3 shows. I don't know this for sure 100%, but I think it was only those 3 shows that those guys played all together as them, and that was it. After that, it was back down to just Tomato, B. Ill, Bill Fowler, and Doodoo Brown on bass. The other 2 guys, I think it was just the other 2 guys. The other 2 guys left because they're like, I didn't want to do this as like a career. I didn't want to do this as my life. It was just a fun thing to do, like for a weekend, like that kind of thing.
Man, some of that just comes across when you think about the antics on the stage and whatnot, and just everything they were doing and being how ridiculous they were being. It really does kind of play into that idea of, we're just a one-shot deal here for a couple of the guys.
Right. I mean, it's you can tell that they're like I said, they're trying to get the crowd, up and moving, and they're trying to win the crowd over, but they're also like having fun with it too. You know what I mean? And it's just kind of like, okay, you know, if they love us, they love us. If they hate us, they hate us. But you know what? We're just going to fucking jam. And, you know, and that's what they did. And it's just a great little set. And it's like a great example of the original Urchin tunes from the original Urchin EP, which again, if if there's anyone listening to this that's never heard it, check it out and check out their other stuff. Because, I mean, it's just a great band, very original, very unique.
It's just
cool
just fantastic.
And
you might say the EP is Green Green Gold.
Green Green Gold is the last song that they played and just fucking jammed the shit out. But they certainly joined the Ween family after these shows. Would you say that that's accurate?
Yeah, they become part of the Ween family tree of music.
Right. You know, it's like if you want to call them a Ween spinoff or whatever, okay. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? It's like, they won the Ween crowd over, which is no easy task, but they did it. You know, so definitely a great time. I mentioned the EP because the tambourine player Richard Rickles was.
So really quick, I want to add that Sound of Urchin does a fantastic job of nicknames. You know, like it's.
Oh right.
You have to have stage names, and you have to have good stage names, and they do a great job of having good stage names.
Right. So I should have clarified that. Yeah, I'm just mentioning these guys like everyone knows. It's Tomato 11, B. Ill, the Reverend B. Ill, Bill Fowler, Barbie Smooth at the time, Doo-Doo Brown on bass, and then Richard Rickles on tambourine. So I'm pretty sure that was all the guys that played for those 3 shows.
So was Rickles the guy throwing the EPs into the crowd and just dancing up there? Yeah. So basically, like, he was on tambourine and just dancing. I think there's a couple of clips on YouTube, of video clips of them on YouTube as well. I'm not sure exactly what you have to search for, but I think there's a couple of clips, not the whole set, but a couple of cool clips so that you can see what we're talking about. But yeah, Richard Rickles was on tambourine and just dancing on stage like the whole time. And at a couple of points, he was throwing CDs into the crowd. Like, here, check us out, check out the CD, and threw out some CDs. And our friend Corey with a C, caught one. And we were just like ecstatic. It was just like, oh, it was phenomenal. Because I was like watching those things come in the crowd like projectiles. Like, I was like, oh my God, if I try to catch this, I'm going to get hit in the face. So to have one of us catch it was fantastic. And because of that, this is like, pre, excessive internet, you can find anything you want right away. So if one of us hadn't gotten that EP, we may not have really ever kind of learned more about Sound of Urchin,
That is very true. That is very true. And I remember that was one of the first CDs that I ever made like a copy of the CD, like burnt a CD from that CD. Like back in those days, that was a high tech thing.
Yeah.
To put like the CD into your computer, put those tracks onto your computer, and then burn a CD from that. Like I never had a Sound of Urchin like EP tape. It was like, oh, we got to make a CD from that.
Yeah.
So that was one of the first like CDRs I ever had, was the Urchin EP, and listened to it like crazy, just like listen to the shit out of it. But yeah, I mean, just I was hooked. I was after seeing them live and after listening to that first EP, I was hooked, and I've been an Urchin fan.
Yeah, so a fantastic opener, which sets up the whole evening to be just great. Because if you have a fantastic opener that's getting the crowd riled up and not just pissed off, then I think you're doing the right thing, and so it sets it up to be a fantastic night. So, do you want to dive in and go through the set list and then?
Sure. Okay, so let's do. So they played for probably like Urchin played for probably what, like a half hour, 45 minutes, something like that.
Oh yeah, something like that. It was a substantial opener. It wasn't just like 2 songs.
Yeah, it's like 45 minutes like total, but But yeah, just a great time seeing them for the first time. And then fucking Ween comes out. So I'm just going to roll down the whole set list, and then we can go back and make some comments and stuff.
Go for it.
1999, pork roll, egg and cheese, Don't Shit Where You Eat, Voodoo Lady, Now I'm Freaking Out, Waving My Dick in the Wind, Dr. Rock, Freedom of 76, Pandy Fackler, Buckingham Green, Spinal Meningitis, Frank, Tender Situation, The Mollusk, Piss Up a Rope, Big Jim, Back to Basim, Take Me Away, Mr. Richard Smoker, Fat Lenny, Puerto Rican Power, Homo Rainbow, Stroker Ace, You Fucked Up, Baby Bitch, She Wanted to Leave, The Blarney Stone, and then for the encore, Birthday Boy, AIDS/HIV Song, Marble Tulip Juicy Tree, Ice Castles, and LMLYP.
And all I can say right now is, wow. Like
that's a full night of Ween right there.
I think the show clocks in at 2 hours and 43 minutes. If the last, and then I think the last recording I saw on YouTube, it took it right up to the end and didn't have like minutes of like BS afterward. It was a substantially long show. I feel like my personal sense or experience is that the shows were longer back then. Close, more than 2.5, 2 hours and 45, and this one is right there. You look at that set list, man, and it's just like a tour de force of amazing Ween songs, one after the other. And of course, if we're gonna just kind of talk about highlights and go into some of these songs, I think the first one you got to say is 1999. I mean, Ween does not do covers often. And obviously it's January 1st of 1999. And obviously the entire world is like thinking about Prince's song Party Like It's 1999 and had been thinking about that for like 15 years and being like, man, I can't wait for 1999 because then we can party like it's 1999. Like, so it wasn't like it was a surprise, but at the same time, when they started with that, it was just like, oh my God, this is awesome. And it was just like, wow, he's doing Prince, and it's like, and of course the show ends with LMLYP. So there's totally like this Prince vibe that's like permeating the show. And you combine those two songs, and that's probably like 40 minutes of the show right there. We'll get to LMLYP later. I timed LMLYP, but I didn't time 1999, but I'm sure it was at least a few minutes. But anyway, so starting right off the bat with that, just, sinks your teeth in, and then, of course, following up with pork roll, egg, and cheese, right? So the show gets off on a fantastic start.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's sort of like, okay, you got 1999, which is like, boom, just like knocks you on your ass. And then they play a couple of kind of slow songs. So it's like pork roll, egg and cheese. And I think Diener even says, okay, we don't want to just ram it in. We gotta lube you up first, and then we'll ram it in. So it's like pork roll, egg and cheese, followed by Don't Shit Where You Eat, which is kind of like an uncommon tune. And
yeah, absolutely.
That's early for a song like that. Like you would put that sort of back, at the bottom, towards the end of the night, in my opinion. So it's like they hit you with 1999, and then they do a couple of like slower jams. So it sort of like cools things off, and like Voodoo Lady is just like it's killer, and it's almost like the official start of the show, kind of. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's like, okay, 1999 is like, holy shit, I wasn't expecting that. Got a couple of slow jams, just groovy, everyone's kind of settling in, and then Voodoo Lady is just like, bam, Yeah,
and at this point, the band, as Ween, the five-piece band, at this point, they're honed, their craft is honed, and a song like Voodoo Lady, they've been rocking for a few years now, and so, as the group, and they just light it up. I mean, so right. Insofar as you're saying like, oh, it's kind of like the unofficial beginning of the show, I kind of see that too, because it's like just a perfect version of Voodoo Lady, really. And at that point in their history, it was just perfect craft, and just like they're jamming, and that's like the extended jam, one of the longer songs. So it just brought it in. It's like, this is Ween, and we're serious tonight. And so they dial it in.
Yeah, we had sort of talked about on our last episode, which was the 98 show from the Troc, the beginning of 98, how as a 5-piece band, it's really starting to come together. And, this is a year later. This is, January 1st, 99, or almost a year later. And, they're fucking, like we said about that show, they're firing on all cylinders. I mean, they played, a lot of shows in, 97 and 98, and now it's like they're back, and it's not, it's take no prisoners. You know what I mean? Everything is tight. Everything is together. Like you said, it's a long show, and it's Ween at the top of their game.
Absolutely,
it really is.
This to me, continue to go through more and more of our shows and everything. This kind of is the beginning to me of like our classic period with Ween, where we started to see a lot more shows, and do feel that there's a few years there where they, as far as my experience, were just phenomenal live act. And this is definitely one of those shows. They follow Voodoo Lady up with Now I'm Freaking Out, which is just like an awesome, that's pure gold when that's live. And in the middle of it, I don't know if this is every time they play it. I'd have to look at other versions, but there's a sweet solo in Now I'm Freaking Out. And it's kind of like, I love those little gems where, you could step away from the big long jam songs and you play a little shorter song, but they, Diener still puts in his beautiful solo. It's like,
right.
They don't have to be 8-minute jam songs for there to be amazing artistry going on with the music.
Absolutely. And that's another, Now I'm Freaking Out. That's another one. That's a B-side. You know what I mean? Back when, B-sides were still a thing. You know what I mean? Now I'm Freaking Out. That was one of those tunes where it's like, what the fuck is this? You know what I mean? Didn't show up on anything up until, now. So as far as we knew, it was just some crazy song. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But a great one. And just as good as anything else that they played throughout the night, really.
Yeah, and speaking of other highlights, Pandy Fackler, to me, there's a few reasons why this is a great highlight. The one is that it's just a great, to me, it's just like a great example of the 5-piece band growing together. That's something that I kind of touch base on with all of these episodes that we cast, is sort of the evolution of the band. And
absolutely.
And so I feel like this is just a great example of like how they're growing as the 5-piece. Glenn's got the solo, and it's just wonderful. Every time Glenn has a solo, I just think it's like the greatest thing on the planet. The other great thing about Pandy Fackler, which you had put in your notes, which was cool, it was Becky Wagner.
Right.
And so
this is, I'm assuming that it was Becky Wagner. I went back and looked and seen how many times they had played this. There's some White Pepper songs that you'd think are like brand new for this show, but they actually were played like a couple of times before the ones that they broke out on this specific night. But I'm assuming it was Becky Wagner all the way up until now at least, and then at some point after that they changed it to Pandy Fackler.
Yeah,
I don't really know. But for this night anyway, for this show, it's everything is Becky Wagner, and they announce it and they say they bullshit it and they say, oh, this is something we just wrote upstairs, which is obviously that's not true, but then
but it's a new song. Says, like you said, it's only played at a couple shows, so it is still pretty brand new.
It is new. Right, it is new, but it wasn't just written that night or anything like that. But Aaron says, "Oh, and that's Becky Wagner right there," and just points to somebody in the crowd, and people cheer. It's like there again. It's like, what the fuck, is he being serious or what? Like we don't know, but it's definitely an early version of Pandy Fackler, and it starts differently than the way it would eventually come to begin.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know what I mean. Like if you listen to it, it doesn't start off with just the guitar. It doesn't start like that. It starts off with the like the second piece, which is the it starts like that. So it's like, no, wait a minute, it's not. It's like out of order, you know. But it's like an early version.
Yeah, exactly.
Of Pandy Fackler.
And you touched on something that I wanted to talk about, is that you know, so they play a whole bunch of White Pepper songs, and you know, we both obviously go to Brown Base and check stuff out, and I noticed, you know, that so many of these songs, it's like this is like the second or third time that they were like ever played, and that's just like, you know, and I think maybe some of them was the first time, maybe, or am I? But anyway, they were like only played a couple times max, and it's like also a year and a half before White Pepper even comes out. So this is like way before the album, you know.
So I made a little note here. So the White Pepper songs that were played for this 3-night run, New York, Philly, and DC, were Ice Castles, which we'll get back to in a minute, okay? Pandy Fackler, both of which, Ice Castles and Pandy Fackler, were played either once or twice before, okay? Back to Bassum, which they played for the first time. I'll have to go back and check, but it was either in New York or DC. It wasn't in Philly. Stroker Ace, which had been played twice before, and The Grobe. So there you have 5 White Pepper songs that were played within those 3 nights.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically, it's like the new songs at the time. So this is, yeah, like you said, this is over a year before White Pepper would come out.
White Pepper doesn't come out till May of 2000, I believe, and this is January 1999. It's just crazy to think like how far ahead, you know, like this is no longer the Mollusk tour. It's way before White Pepper, so it's just like this middle period, and it's neat to go to a show that isn't connected to an album, because I think it ends up being a different kind of show.
Yeah, I want to sort of talk about that at the end.
Yeah.
Also, but.
Well, yeah, you can hit up some more highlights. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, one of the things while we're talking about the White Pepper songs is part of the encore is Ice Castles, but it wasn't named yet. So, like, I remember getting, I think I had gotten this on a cassette tape as well. I think it was probably the last time I got a cassette tape of a show, and then after that, every time I got a bootleg, it was on CD. But the tapes that I got, Ice Castles wasn't named that yet, and it just said the Baroque Jam.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yes, I remember that now that you mention it. That's funny.
Yeah. So Ice Castles didn't even really have a name yet. It wasn't until White Pepper would come out that that we learned that, like, oh, that song is now called Ice Castles.
Yeah.
So, like, that shows you how early it was in the stage of the band. But as far as other songs and other highlights, music wise, just basically everything was great. There's a really nice intro to Baby Bitch.
Yeah, the Baby Bitch, that was one that I had on my mind. Just great. And it's like I again, it's something where I feel like that's not how they play it every time. Just to have this like subtle intro where it's like you almost don't even know if it's Baby Bitch. And then it turns into Baby Bitch. It's just like really, really great. Puerto Rican Power is always a highlight of any show.
Totally.
It was great because then Homo Rainbow was sort of impromptu, I guess, because Reverend Beale, right, was coming up to play.
Yeah, they stop for a couple of minutes and they're like, oh, we're going to get Bill Fowler, which is Reverend Beale from Sound of Urchin, to come out and play guitar. And then Aaron says, It's going to take about 10 minutes to set up. So they just sort of just start in a little thing like, okay, what can we do while we're waiting? And Aaron just starts singing Homo Rainbow, and they just do a little Homo Rainbow kind of, I don't want to call it a tease. It's more than a tease, but it's just like a little, thing they just put together real quick. Just, many colors in the Homo Rainbow, and just bust that out. And, it's like, yeah, throw that in there, man. Totally. So that there again, that's kind of a B-side. That was from the South Park album, but it's just a real like cool little jazzy version of it because it's just real simple, So they do that while they're waiting to get Bill Fowler set up for guitar.
And I think that was one of the first times. That was like the second time that was ever played too. I think Homo Rainbow.
Something like that, yeah. Very right. Yeah, and then after that, they set up Reverend Beale to play Stroke or Ace, is really what he's there to play guitar on, and of course that's like that's an in-your-face jam that we had never heard before, because that's another White Pepper song. So that was a highlight. And what else? Marble Tulip Juicy Tree is fucking, I mean, that's kind of especially at that time, that was a pretty rare jam.
Yeah, no, that's another one for me that's like, oh my God, they're playing Marble Tulip Juicy Tree. Right. It's just like, I can't believe it. It's awesome.
Yeah, and that's a great rendition of it too. With a extended ending with like the echoes and the like, like just really fucking awesome shit.
Well, this encore is great. Birthday Boy.
Oh yeah.
HIV song, which to me that's a little bit throwaway, I guess, if I may. I mean, forgive me, Ween, but Birthday Boy, Marble Tulip, Juicy Tree, the new Ice Castles, and then of course LMLYP.
Yeah.
And to tell you that, so at this point at the show, the show's 2 hours and plus into the show. There was an opening band. We had been rocking and rolling since we left Oli. So at this point, it's definitely kind of getting. I'm kind of getting worn down a little bit. Just like, man, whew, like this has been a big rock and roll show, and then
yes,
and they lay down LMRAP, and at this point, I didn't even really know what that was. I don't think I was really familiar with God, Ween, Satan.
Right.
But so at that point, and so it was kind of like, what is this? And then it was like, oh my God, it's funny because the last 20 years, 15 years, it's been like I always sort of thought like, man, that was a really long version. That was like that went on forever. And then I actually just timed it before earlier today as I was re-listening to the show, and it was about 31 minutes long.
Oh man, that's fucking insane.
31-minute long.
Well, really what it is, if you break it down, if you listen to the whole jam, it's every one of the members takes a pretty long solo.
Yes.
In that jam, it's like they just go around and everybody takes a solo.
Everyone gets a nice healthy solo.
A nice one. Yeah, a nice one at that. Right, exactly. But yes, I do remember being like, by the time they were like halfway into that, it was kind of like, okay, how much longer is this going to go? It was one of those things where it was like, are they going to outlast the crowd? Is the crowd going to start dropping by the time, this thing ends? It was definitely a very long jam. And, I remember going to some of the other people that were with us and just being like, how you holding up?
Yeah.
I specifically remember saying that.
Some of the straights. Okay,
this is,
how are you guys doing?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you guys okay? You know what I mean?
It's like some of our friends that were at the show, probably their only Ween they ever listened to was probably the Mollusk right before the show, and now it's like, oh my God, they got a 31-minute LMOIP. Like, what are you gonna do with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was phenomenal. Glenn, everyone's solos were great. Glenn, like I said earlier, every time he has a solo, it's just awesome. I love it. And the same with Dave. I just love the bass solo. It's just a lot of fun.
Totally.
And it's hard for me to dive much deeper because it's a 31-minute song filled with solos. But
Yeah.
But man, that's that legend. The legend, like part of the legend of this show for me is like 30-minute LMIP, 31 minutes long. It's like that's the longest song that I've heard live for Ween. Like they've never played anything else that long as far as I can remember. Like that's definitely the longest jam, the longest like song that I've heard live.
Yeah. Well, I remember getting, I had mentioned that I had gotten this on tape as a bootleg after the fact, after the show. And I'm pretty sure that the entire show would fit on one tape front and back, 2 sides. And then there was like a second tape which just had that song on it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember if it was exactly, or maybe it was just like just like Ice Castles in that or something.
Probably if you had 60-minute sides on your tape, or if it was like an extended play.
So I don't remember, but I just remember it was like the whole reason why it was on like 2 tapes instead of just one was because that song was so long.
That's amazing.
Was because that jam was so long. And then same thing when when everything transitioned over to CDs, and you still got like the CDs in the mail. It was 3 discs, and the disc 3 was like just that.
Yeah.
So it was.
It's a big show when it's on 3 discs.
Yeah, right.
Like that.
Right.
That's almost like
So
a
it's
standard.
definitely-
Like if it has to be put on 3 discs, then that's
Right.
getting to that point where it's a nice long show.
Right. But yeah, just a fucking great, long jam, which again shows you where they are in their career, and all of them can take a solo in a long jam, and it's the shit.
Yeah, and they're all filled with energy, and like they're all like committing to those jams. It's just like really great, and you just sense the energy and that togetherness that they've been developing over the last few years. LMLYP, like summarizing it all up with that song is like a great way to kind of sum up the whole show, really.
Right, absolutely. What else? We'll just mention a couple of the things that they talk about through the show. At the beginning, Aaron says, pork roll, egg and cheese. Yeah, we want to play pork roll, egg and cheese. And then he says, we'll play pork roll for the mummers, which anybody that doesn't know, that's a Philadelphia thing.
Yeah.
For the Mummers Day Parade. The mummers are like, I guess the best way to describe it is like a clown. And it's a traditional thing in Philadelphia that you have the Mummers Day Parade, and the mummers march through the city every New Year's Day, and it's just like a big party. It's kind of like Mardi Gras.
Yeah, it's Philly's Mardi Gras with
Yeah, and it's always on New Year's Day. So that's what he's talking about. We want to play that for the mummers.
Yeah. After
so that's a.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
After Now I'm Freaking Out, it's interesting. There's almost like a little bit of a Sorry Charlie tease that I thought is interesting.
Okay.
Where maybe they were talking to someone in the crowd and someone was requesting it and they like repeated it back. But, re-listening to the show, it's like almost like they're going to tease Sorry Charlie and then they don't do it.
Right. What else? Oh, at one point, I didn't get to put down when this actually happens, but you hear Diener say, yeah, I'll take them. And then he goes, butterscotch crimpets. And somebody must have just been like, here, do you want these? And threw up a box of butterscotch crimpets. And then Aaron says, hey, aren't those from Philadelphia? So there again, that's a Philly reference for anyone not from the area, because it's a box of Tasty Cakes. Which is like the local version of like a Little Debbie, or like it's like a snack cake, and butterscotch crimpets is one of the more popular ones. So someone had threw up a box of butterscotch crimpets on the stage.
It's also funny because Aaron's saying that as if he's not from the Philadelphia area, and like that he would even say Philadelphia as a whole word, like, and aren't those from Philly, or it's like he's clearly like playing this up. Like to make sure everyone knows what he's doing, with them or whatever. It's like an interesting moment of comedy.
I know. It's like, hey, aren't those from Philadelphia? It's like, dude, you're from fucking Philadelphia. We know you're from Philadelphia. Like, you know.
making sure he gets the name of the city that the show is being played in. Like, he's making sure that he's saying it for everyone to hear.
Yeah, that's good. We talked about the Pandy Fackler thing is still Becky Wagner. After Tender Situation, Diener has a good quote, which is just, it's really simple, but he just says, we're going to break it down. We're going to break it all the way down, which I just love that. It's so stupid.
Did also like lean over really far to play guitar for that song?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
I actually need to start paying it. A lot of times when I'm listening to these shows to kind of remember everything was happening, I'm just doing stuff in the house and sort of listening. But I need to watch them because I want to keep track of when Diener bends all the way over, leans all the way over to play the guitar right to the ground.
That's what we should count how many times he does that in the next. The next episode that we do, we'll have to watch the video and count how many times.
Yeah,
he leans
make a count for that. But dude,
yeah.
But what else can I say? It was a fantastic show, front to back. It's sort of obviously of that time because you don't have any of the newer material, right? Like you don't have, a little bit of White Pepper, but it's not like you have. Any of the newer albums, so it's all like old school music. It's like all the old school albums. So it just, that to me, throw that with a 2 hour and 40-minute show, and you're going to have a fantastic set list. Because the new albums aren't fantastic, but these are just more like just the old school. It's just a little bit more mythical.
Right. Well, okay, so we'll kind of wrap it up, but the one thing I did want to say is. This is sort of like this era to me, and maybe it's just from our own personal experience, or maybe someone else, can kind of confirm this. It's like this is an era for Ween where the alternative scene is sort of like coming to a close. This is the beginning of 1999, and it's sort of like the start of Ween as its own thing. If that makes any sense. It's like
instead of just part of like the alternative jam scene or whatever.
Right. Like in my take on it is like the Beavis and Butthead era, so to speak, is officially over. Okay? So like you had those crazy 90s like alternative bands, and it's like either you're going to get left behind in the dust as that's like coming to a close, or you're going to go on and, sort of have your own career and your own life. And that is what Ween is starting to like become.
Yeah, absolutely.
With a show like this. It's like you have like these 3 shows, and it's a perfect example of like, okay, New York, Philly, DC. I'm pretty sure all 3 of them are sold out. This night was definitely sold out. And it's not really, you had mentioned, it's not really attached to anything. It's just, they're just playing. It's not like the Mollis tour or, the country album tour or, the chocolate and cheese tour or what. It's not connected to anything. It's just its own thing.
It's a New Year's tour.
Its own. It's right. It's a New Year's tour, quote unquote, the New Year's shows, but there's nothing to like promote. There's nothing that's, oh, this album just came out and now they're on tour to support it. No, it's just these shows by themselves, and they completely stand on their own. All 3 nights are sold out, and it's sort of like the beginning of Ween as like it detaches from that like alternative music scene, and they start becoming their own thing. You know what I mean? Not that they were ever not their own thing, but like I said, any kind of popularity or any sort of like following that they would have gotten from like the Beavis and Butthead or like the chocolate and cheese era, being on MTV on like 120 minutes and like all that kind of stuff is sort of like coming to a close. And they're gaining their own momentum and their own popularity based solely on like the live performance.
Yeah. Something else that we'll have to do some research between the next show, the next WeenCast, and if any of the listeners out there can add input on this, but by all means, leave it in the notes on YouTube or email us. But when was Fish on hiatus? I know in the late '90s, Fish started having the old, we're gonna break up or we're gonna go on hiatus for a little while, then they're gonna come back, then they're gonna break up and go on hiatus for a while. But that hadn't happened yet, or was Fish still Fish pre-hiatus at this point?
Fish played until I think right around September 11th, because I know that Fish still toured up until the year 2000.
Gotcha.
I think it was like between 2000 and 2001 that they started the hiatus, which was like 3.
Gotcha. Okay,
4 years.
So that has nothing to. So then just kind of forget that I went on that tangent, but we'll bring that up in the next few episodes. Why that might be important.
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit after. It's another like year or so after this.
Yeah.
After this
okay,
show.
so that's.
But it's no, you're not totally off. It's coming up shortly after this after this era of the band. But that's another good point to make. But yeah, that sort of starts into like the jam band, quote unquote, like scene, which it's like.
Yeah, once Fish goes on hiatus, and we'll talk more about that because now's not the right time. But my hypothesis is that you see this huge influx of sort of jam band fans and Fish fans going to see Ween as a way to make up for not being able to go see Fish, and then you start seeing a huge explosion into the bigger venues and stuff. But clearly they're not there yet because Fish was still rocking and rolling pre-hiatus era, and obviously this is in Trocadero, which is a small venue, so it's still, even though it's sold out, it's a small venue. It's not like they're playing to 10,000 people, 5,000 people or whatever. Right.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be. It's like we said, it's not like attached to like any album really. This show, this set of shows, Painting the Town Brown would be the next thing that would be like released, and that wasn't until that summer. It was June 22nd of 99. So and there again, it's like we talked about the White Pepper songs. It's like that's not until the next year. That's May 2000. So it's like these shows were really like just sort of on their own.
Yeah,
and they're they're great. They're absolutely great shows to listen to go back and listen to, especially this this specific night.
Yeah, man, it was a fantastic show. That's my final word is just, man, phenomenal show. Ween at its best.
Oh,
if you haven't listened to this show, find it on YouTube and listen to it tonight.
One personal note, just going back to our own experience before and after the show, it was right after this that we took our trip to Canada. we took a long weekend trip to Canada,
Mississauga.
Mississauga, outside of Toronto, just to drink legally.
Because we were we were all 19 or whatever.
Yeah, just to drink at age 19.
I was 20, but you were 19.
Yeah, 19 and 20. None of us were actually 21.
No, it was like, well, that's funny in itself. But after a long ass day of Ween, we get back to Ole, go to sleep, and then the plan is to wake up at like 5 a.m. or some shit and go get the rental car and then go off to Canada. So that's quite the adrenaline, but being so exhausted and having to drive all the way to Canada with a rental car. But that's a whole nother podcast. But
yeah, I know. But I just had to throw that in there because I remember that night just, like screaming at each other, just like, we're going to Canada. And it's just like the most ridiculous trip.
Yeah, that was a pretty crazy trip. But it all started in Philadelphia on January 1st with the Ween show.
That's right. It all started with that Ween show. That's right. So if you haven't listened to that show, do yourself a favor, go back and check it out.
Yeah. One last thing I'd like to just throw out there quick is if you want to send us an email to share your thoughts about any of these shows, that's fantastic. We have an address that is WeenCastPodcast@gmail.com, all one word. So it's out there. So, by all means, email us if you have questions or comments about the shows. I'm happy to get your feedback for anything. Love to hear from you guys. But if you're just gonna email me to tell me the 10 things that I'm doing wrong and how to do it your way, then it's cool. I probably won't listen to you.
Well, we're trying to make, we're trying to make each episode a little bit better than the last. We're trying to make the audio quality and everything improve as we go along. So bear with us. If there's anyone here that's listened to the other episodes and you can tell, I think we're trying to keep improving the quality of them. But yeah, hit us up. It's WeenCastPodcast@gmail to send us an email. Drop a comment, on YouTube or on Twitter. It's also @WeenCastPodcast. So it's WeenCast Podcast for Twitter and for Gmail.
Cool. Yeah, I hope to hear from some of you guys out there. And
yeah,
we did get
we did get a few comments, which we love hearing. We love hearing anything. So please drop a comment or send us an email with your thoughts if you were at this show, if you were at the other two shows that we were talking about from that New Year's run. Hit us up with anything, please.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you so much for listening. Anybody that's out there that's listening to this.
Yeah, man, thanks for giving us your time. How can I say anything more except that I really appreciate that someone's willing to listen to us describe our experiences and chat about Ween. So it's awesome.
Absolutely. All right, that's all I have.
All right, guys. Have a good night, world.
All right, later.